Second-order simulacra and the obsolescence of the real contemporary discourse increasingly frames generative artificial intelligence as a rupture, a sudden displacement of authenticity by fabrication, truth by simulation, and human agency by algorithmic synthesis. This framing, however, misrecognizes the historical condition it claims to diagnose. AI-generated content does not replace a previously real informational order. It intensifies and accelerates a regime of mediation that was already structurally detached from lived reality. Long before the advent of generative models, cultural production was dominated by second-order representations, narratives referring primarily to other narratives, images indexing prior images, and interpretations circulating independently of the events or social relations they purported to describe. News media, academic commentary, documentary aesthetics, and digital culture increasingly operated through stock forms, recycled footage, prefabricated explanatory arcs, and demographic targeting, producing what Baudrillard described not as illusion, but as operational reality, a system that functions regardless of its correspondence to lived experience. Within this context, the distinction between real and fake content becomes analytically unstable. What matters is not veracity, but circulatory legitimacy, the degree to which a representation aligns with institutional norms, platform incentives, and recognizable formats. Content succeeds not by revealing, but by resembling. Authority is conferred through stylistic compliance rather than empirical grounding. Generative AI enters this environment not as an external corrupter, but as an efficient reproducer of already dominant forms. Its outputs are persuasive precisely because they mimic the tonal, visual, and rhetorical conventions that had long governed legitimacy in media and knowledge production. AI does not invent the fake. It automates it. This automation exposes a latent contradiction. Actors who were previously invested in mediated narratives, journalists, academics, cultural producers, commentators, now distinguish between authentic and synthetic content, while relying on criteria that were themselves products of mediation. The defense of the old content regime thus becomes a defense of prior simulations against newer, cheaper, and less gatekept ones. For audiences, this produces a bifurcated response. Highly credulous consumers absorb AI-generated material seamlessly, as it differs little from existing informational textures. More critical or invested actors reject AI outputs not because they are false, but because they threaten established hierarchies of authorship, prestige, and access. The objection is less epistemic than political economic. What disappears in both reactions is the subject whose experience fails to register within the representational economy. Individuals whose lives do not translate into institutionally legible narratives because they lack platform visibility, demographic utility, or symbolic value remain structurally absent regardless of whether content is human or machine-generated. Their erasure predates AI and persists through it. Thus, the contemporary moment is not defined by the loss of the real, but by the obsolescence of reference altogether. Representations no longer compete on accuracy, but on scalability, recognizability, and algorithmic fitness. AI accelerates this process by collapsing the labor costs of simulation, revealing that what was once defended as meaning was often only formatting with authority. In this sense, the anxiety surrounding AI-generated fake content functions as a displaced critique. The problem is not that machines now fabricate narratives, but that social reality had already been subordinated to systems of representation indifferent to those who could not be rendered useful within them. AI merely makes this indifference explicit. The result is a cultural environment saturated with representations that refer only to one another, while lived realities, especially those marked by exclusion, dispossession, or nonconformity, remain structurally unrepresentable. The crisis, then, is not epistemological but ontological, not a question of truth versus falsity, but of which lives are permitted to appear at all.